episode of Just a Tip. So I've had a few people ask me about foam rolling and about trying to release their muscles, in particular around the hip and the glute. And they just find that the foam roller just doesn't cut it, doesn't get in there. A lot of other people try using a lacrosse ball, which is a much better option, just because the size of the ball can kind of get into the hip. But what I've found to be the best, or to work the best, other than physically getting somebody else to kind of poke into there, is just a dowel or a broomstick. And what you're going to do is just stick it in a corner and get into your hip in through there. So rather than just randomly prodding and poking at your hip, most places that most people tend to get sore is if you go and have a look at the side of your hip, you can usually feel up your leg and you'll feel a little bit of a bone there. Then if you basically go up and back from that bone up until the top of your pelvis, so that area there, that's pretty much where you're going to feel that tightness and that soreness. So what you're going to do is find that bone there, stick the dowel above that, behind that as well. And there's a few ways you can go about working in through there. You can just sit in there, try and relax in there. So find a spot that's sore, that's pretty tender there, and just try and relax into it. Spend a few seconds, a minute, just sitting there trying to get that to relax. Otherwise, you can just sit there, just slowly moving that back and forth as you would a foam roller or a ball, just trying to release that a little bit. If you do find any spots that are particularly sore, spend a little bit of time in there. One thing that I would suggest is just, you might feel like you're tough and you can take more, but it's not always better to just go harder and harder. You're going to get to a point where that muscle's not going to want to relax and you're just going to end up with a big bruise in your hip. It's not very comfortable, not very helpful either. The other place that people tend to get quite tight is in through TFL, which is if you go in through the front of your hip and you find that bone just there, it's kind of just out and to the side of that. So that pointy bit in the front of your hip, just out and to the side, and again, just facing that in towards the stick and just leaning into there and having a bit of a play around. Another thing that might help you out if you're just struggling to get that muscle to relax is to put your leg closer to the wall than the end of the stick. That's just going to contract the muscle a little bit and get it to be a little bit more relaxed when you do sit into it, just so you're not poking a stick into an overly stretched muscle. So if you're having some hip pain, some hip tightness out through the outside of your hip or your glutes, give that one a go. Yeah, that's been another episode of Just the Tip. Thanks.